baby.
We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we been.
Y'all better get comfortable with saying black.
We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause
Black versus the Board of Education.
Cause we came here, rid of us now. We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we came here, rid of us now. And you know, and we know, and we go, because we been here.
That's why we are indeed a whole mood.
That's it.
Welcome to another episode of Black versus the Board of Education. My name is Miss Laureen, and I welcome you into this space. It is October 27th, and that means that we have a special conversation for you today. We are teaching trust and transformation, the Nichelle Henderson episode. And if you don't know who Miss Nichelle Henderson is, you are living under a rock, because this sister she's running for a superintendent of public instruction, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you're the only one up here that has met her in person, right? So I feel very privileged that she's actually here on BVBOE to talk to us. So we want to get her queued up. But before we do that, we always like to let you know who's in the building for the conversation. So we're going to pull up Miss Melissa. We're going to let her go first because ladies first. My bad. And then we're going to come to the gentleman in the building, and then we're going to add our guest to the show. So Miss Melissa, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa, and I am a sophomore at UC Berkeley.
Now, Melissa, before I go to the fellas, do you know what a public instruction, what did I say she was running for? Superintendent of public instruction is. Do you know what that is?
I do not know what that is.
Oh, we're going to learn something today. Hey. Okay. Sitting right next to me is
Mr. Fox, and I would like to also make sure that I give my personal welcome to Miss Nichelle. She's sharp. This sister right here, she's sharp. And I don't mean
impressed.
I was impressed, and I don't mean to demean any other sister by saying she's sharp. Like sisters come a dime, sharp sisters come a dime a dozen.
They do,
but the sharper ones come. She cultured and she educated, and the sister she come from it. She speak of it, and she speaks well for herself. So when y'all get a chance to hear her, she ain't running for it for me. She already got my vote.
Oh,
y'all gonna hear what she got to say.
Look at Fox is a fan. Okay,
yeah,
I love
real.
it.
That's sister sharp. Across the table.
Thank you, sir. My name is Daniel. Happy to be here. Interesting to see the perspective from your point of view, from what I've learned from Mr. Fox about your meet. I'm happy that you're here.
Oh, fantastic. And rounding us out today.
James, super happy to be here. Super excited to see you, Nichelle. Can't wait to get started. Let's go.
And so we're going to just pull her up because, we're talking about her, but we want to add her to the conversation. Please welcome Miss Nichelle Henderson to BVBOE.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Now, we keep saying your name, but would you tell us something about yourself in your introduction that people would be surprised to know about you?
Oh, wow. That I'm Black?
Girl, I know that.
Man, we can hear that in your
girl.
voice.
Okay.
Okay. So I am a trustee on the Los Angeles Community College District.
Okay.
I'm a Scorpio. I love reading. I've got 4 adult kids. I am a grandma. And yeah, I'm a teacher.
So did your birthday pass or it's coming up?
It is coming up November 9th.
Okay, party at Nichelle's. Okay.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah, happy early birthday.
And then you're part of the Divine Nine too, aren't you? I thought I saw that in your picture.
I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
I love it. So then we don't have to really kind of pick your brain to figure out where you're coming from. But I saw, and I don't know exactly what a superintendent of public instruction does. I'm always interested to know where the power lies. So as you decided to step into this role to run for this seat, what is it that you hope to be able to bring to the role?
Bring my expertise, my education, my background. I have a master's degree in education with an emphasis on elementary teaching. I hold a active, clear, multiple subjects teaching credential, where most of the other candidates in this race do not. I have community college policy making experience. I've been on the board of trustees now this is year 5 for me. So I'm in the first year of my second term in office. And I am a teacher educator. I work with new and pre-service teachers working towards their teaching credentials. So I know what's going on in our classrooms, how new and veteran teachers are being impacted by policy coming from the state, because a lot of the issues that teachers are dealing with right now in their classrooms, I was dealing with it 15 years ago. I think that's trash. And I think, when we focus on student achievement, student success, we will see better from our students.
Oh, come on now. Melissa, I'm going to kick it to you first. So what you got?
Yeah. Okay. So, hi, nice to meet you. I actually want to be a teacher. I also want to get my master's degree in education. I'm currently finishing undergrad at UC Berkeley with a major in African American studies. And my question is, in a lot of our schools, Black students are still being pushed out through discipline instead of being pulled in with support. And so how do you plan to work with districts to kind of disrupt that harmful cycle?
Right out the gate. Yes, ma'am.
Right out the gate. You're not even going to allow me to be politically correct. Wow. Give me a second to come up with a politically correct stance on this. First of all, we say that the system of education is broken. It isn't broken. It was never designed for Black students and other students of color to be successful, first and foremost. So when we talk about achievement gaps, when we talk about how Black children in particular are being treated, it's a system designed for their failure. So in the early mid-90s, when George Bush was president and he came up with this ridiculous No Child Left Behind Reading by 9 initiative, every year since, children have been left behind, especially Black kids, right? And it was the same time frame that the number of beds in a prison was being determined by a child's ability to read by 9. So it's all been designed, because once you've expelled a student or suspended a student so many times, now they're in line for expulsion. 9 times out of 10, once they are expelled from a district, they can't go to another school. They have to go to another district with that tag on them. So they're automatically branded as a bad student. The challenge that we have in education is we have too many teachers teaching students that don't look like them. We have policies that are not designed for the success of all students and taking into account how they learn, why they learn, and the influences and the impacts of the community around them. We don't address the needs of a child, we address the behavior.
Ooh.
Mic drop.
Wow.
So what I would do is make sure that teachers understand, if you're going to teach in a community where you don't live, where you are not from, you need to demonstrate some level of competency around what's going on in that community. You need to be in a position of strength and support, not bringing in another barrier to success.
Mr. Fox.
Like I said, I've heard her speak before. I'm gonna ask a question, and I know this about you as well, and I support this. You got to be politically correct sometimes. So I'm gonna say this: with the school to prison pipeline, right? I'm watching the whole system not just be spoken on, but I've been on one side of the system just like you have as well. With your being in the school system for 30 years, I'm watching the system that looks, just to be able to go in the system to see your kid, it's like they already training the parents of how it is to go inside of a prison, to visit a prison. You to go inside of a school to see your child, you have to go through the same call, make an appointment, see if it's available, and then they alert the people that you come in. You have to dress the perfect thing just to get through the gate thing, just to get in there. And the kids on the other side, they prepping them up on how it is in prison. This is how you're gonna talk to me. This is what authority is. When an alarm happens, this is what goes on, and this is who you is, right? Now, within that being said, and everybody talking about a lot of stuff, you said something that really just, I was looking this way and you said it, and I looked dead at you because I believe it. You said in one of your speeches, I heard, the system ain't broken, it's working the exact way it's supposed to be working. And when you said that, it just grabbed my heart. Like, you know what, I've been saying that for a long time. And I see it, and it's for real. The prison system, the justice system, and the school system. However, within all that being said, here comes the question. You being somebody who's coming from the inside of a system, I have noticed that you speak unapologetically, and we do that around here as well at Black Youth Leadership. We speak unapologetically. Unapologetically, what are you willing to address, or are you saying are the weaknesses in the system that you have came from that you're willing to address openly out in the public?
Oh, what I've been addressing now, running for this seat as a trustee, as a teacher, is the inequity. It's because the system is working the way it was intended. I want folks to think about how the system would look if they can imagine the system working for all students, if that makes sense. And so, you know, when I was a classroom teacher, I had students in my class, mostly Black boys that had IEPs, you know, they were labeled behavior problems. And I became the teacher that if you came to my class, if you were going to be put out of the school, or even sent home for the day, if you were sent to my class and you could make it through to the last bell, you were given a reprieve, because I didn't believe in sending students to the office unless it was, you know, it was going to be a situation of them stay in my class and I go to jail that day, or they go home or out of my class to preserve their survival, right? And so, but if you were to find any of my students, a lot of them follow me on social media. If you were to ask them to describe me in a word, they would probably say crazy, because every day they were afraid that one or two might get punched in the throat.
Oh, Lord.
But they knew that I loved them, and they knew that I viewed them as my own kids. So, you know, you spend 8 hours a day with somebody, they're yours, they're your people. And so for me, it's speaking out on the fact that, again, we have a lot of folks working in our schools with our kids that don't look like our kids, that don't understand our kids. I was visiting a school the other day, and the parents had to drop the kids off at the gate. The kid go into the gate, and the parents standing outside of the gate looking at the kid go away. You don't know what's happening to your baby. And like you said, they're not welcome to come into the school, but then you have a teacher saying, I'm not getting you support for supporting this child from the parent. How do you, and then they deem the parent to be disengaged.
Right.
You find me a parent that truly doesn't care about their child's education, you will find an anomaly. Every parent cares about their child's education. But you're absolutely right. When you create a prison system mentality, where you're looking at your kid through bars, where your kid is at school, there's no grass, there are no trees, there's no playtime, right? And they're being shown how they should perform in terms of, look at me, don't speak, do what I tell you, do what I say when I say it, don't question me, don't ask anything. How do we think, how do we allow young people to think critically if they can't ask questions?
Facts.
I like that.
Right. And so for me, it's just about calling that out. It's really addressing the fact that the system is not broken. It's working the way that it was designed to work.
And I'm about to take you up an offering. If you keep talking like that, we're going to just pass around the collection plate, because you're hitting all the marks. You're like my spirit animal.
I told you.
Thank you for coming today. But we have a question in the chat before we move on to Mr. Chastain. It says, so what does this change look like? Personal development for teachers, more education on cultural differences. How do we bridge the gap when the system is designed to work against our children?
It's all of that. It's making sure that, so you can have a bias, but don't bring that bias into the classroom.
Right.
Yes.
If you don't truly believe that every child can be successful, You shouldn't be there. We have teachers in classrooms that don't even like kids. They can say that they do. They don't even like kids. It doesn't matter what color the kid is. They just don't like kids. Why are you there, ma'am, sir? What are we talking about here, right? And so what it looks like is making sure that folks are trained, and that perhaps in the interview process, you are asked, what is your experience working with diverse groups of people? Some folks believe that working with a diverse group of people means working with people that look like you, that are just from different neighborhoods. That's not diversity. Diversity is working with people of different abilities, people, physical appearance, location, language, culture, and understanding that even though you view yours as the main, that you need to teach children, in order to meet them where they are, you have to embrace where they come from. You have to embrace the things that influence their everyday existence and bring that into the classroom. So it's retraining, it's being intentional, it's caring, it's giving a damn about students. It's all of that.
I'm about to come over your house.
I'm
coming to your house because
you're talking the good stuff.
Listen, Mr. Chastain.
Yeah, I have a question. You were talking about the behaviors of the children who were in your classes, and you took that time to sit them down and help them out, guide them a little better than most of the teachers that we have worked with. What do you think is really the cause of that behavior? What do you think is really going on behind that behavior? And how do we get educators to learn to listen a little different?
And sorry, I'm laughing because Miss Kia's in the chat and she says she's coming right behind me to Miss Nichelle's house. Go ahead, Miss Nichelle.
A lot of it is dealing with trauma. When you live in a neighborhood and after a certain time of night on a particular day of week, you have to sit in the bathtub to try to do your homework because it's bullets flying through the air and bullets have no names. You're dealing with a parent that works 3 jobs to help keep a roof over your head, and you're at home by yourself every night. You don't know where home is every night. You don't know where your next meal is coming from. You're getting it from school, and the school lunch is trash. We're dealing with a number of things. I had a student that had a single mom, and he would just act out because he was upset that his dad was incarcerated. And I had to explain to him that he's angry at his father taking it out on his mother.
Yeah.
Because every time she had to leave work with a loss of pay to come up to the school to address his foolishness, that was taking some money, something out of the household.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to making sure that there's some cultural relevance and understanding. There is some connection. People have a desire, because I'm not saying people of other ethnicities and cultures can't teach Black kids. I'm not saying that at all. There are some that truly care, but we can't lower the bar for our kids. We can't not hold them to a standard, but we also can't allow them to fall through the cracks because we allow them to use their circumstance as an excuse, as a reason. Help them deal with what they're dealing with in their lives and help them see their value so that they can see themselves and see their worth in the community. That's what school is for. And that's a teacher's job. That's a counselor's job. And I want to make sure that kids have good teachers that care about them, counselors that understand that just because Devontae has a low GPA doesn't mean that he can't go to college.
Right.
Mr. James.
Yes. So,
I told you she powerful.
Yeah. First and foremost, I just want to say your language and your energy is amazing. I appreciate all the knowledge that you're sharing today. You say, so I have a question written down here. You say it's a teacher's job for the students to see their worth. So when we tell our young people, when we tell our kids, to self-advocate, but there's systems often that push them from speaking up. What kind of leadership training or policy shift could protect students' voice, especially for Black students?
Oh, most definitely. By helping teachers to understand that when a child asks a question of them, it's for knowledge sake. It isn't to be belligerent and isn't to be disrespectful, that you might actually have a child that knows something that you don't know.
For sure.
Respect that child's knowledge. You know, it takes a very small-minded, deficit-minded teacher to be upset with a child because they ask a question. And yes, some kids need to learn how to, manage their tone, but that's taught. Have some rules, have some expectations, model what you want to see so that you get it.
I like that.
I'm just listening to you, and if you're just joining us, this is Black versus the Board of Education. We're talking to candidate for Superintendent of Public Instruction, Miss Nichelle Henderson, and I'm listening to you, and you've championed being intentional about equity, not just saying it. For young people who feel like they're often invisible in the school systems, what would you do to make sure they have real voice and agency in the decisions that affect them?
Oh, that's a great question. Work to create strength and have activities and programs for students to be engaged in, where they understand how to use their voice appropriately. Where they understand, like, for instance, I talked to a group of high school students who were 16, and they asked me how I felt about 16-year-olds having the right to vote for their school board members. And I'm thinking, what a powerful idea.
Yep.
That is a good idea.
Right. And you talk about making change, where you will no longer have 95-year-old members of a K-12 board of education. Right.
How about that?
You'll have people that really understand why we need to teach about AI and not be afraid of it, why kids should be able to use their phones in the classroom to learn and not have them have to check their phones at the door. It's the way that you impact change is by bringing voices to the table, but explaining to young people why their voice is valid, how it's valid, and how to use it. We force our kids to constantly approach situations and people from a defense standpoint versus an offensive standpoint, where they feel as though they should be able to speak up in a space versus being made to feel as though they need to be seen and not heard.
Right. So what would you do to make sure of it? What kind of things would you try to implement to make sure that the voices are actually, they have agency in the decisions that affect them?
Honestly, work with parents, so that, because there are parents that tell their children, like I'm a teacher, so I would tell my child, don't argue with the teacher.
Oh, I didn't ever tell my child that.
Leave me. You tell me. It's my job to protect you from the teacher.
That's right.
The teacher is an adult. You're going to always be wrong.
Yes.
Right? And so if it's for me, then that forces me to step up. But it also gives my kids agency to let me know what's going on in real time versus after they graduate from high school and hands might have needed to be laid and I couldn't do it in the moment. So, it's really literally explaining to young people why they're valuable, how they're valuable, because they may not be hearing it at home. They may not be seeing it in the way that they need to for them to exhibit that in their classroom setting. But it's talking to them, having school government be a thing.
And not just a thing.
And not just a thing.
Yeah. Now, Melissa, I've been teaching you that since you were about 13, 14. What have I told you guys about going into classrooms and arguing with adults?
There's a power imbalance. And like Miss Nichelle said, as a student, you're always going to be wrong in that teacher's eyes, and that teacher has the administration backing them up. So to everybody in that scenario, you're going to be wrong.
Okay. So what is your question?
Even when you are right, that's the thing to understand. Even when you're right. And when you argue with the teacher, you're giving the teacher more words to write on a paper about why something is wrong with you.
Yes, ma'am. That power of the pen is powerful. Absolutely.
And I'll tell you this, I'll give you a story, because my younger son just turned 31 a couple of days ago. And when he was in high school, there was a teacher that did something that I really didn't appreciate. And I went against my own preaching about going in on a teacher. And I explained to her, because he went to a private school, and I explained to her that she was unethical. All Black students don't look alike. I went in and I told her in no uncertain terms, ma'am, you're going to catch these hands on sight, because you make my kids feel a certain way. And I didn't appreciate it. You know, if I had a monster coming to school, I would own it, but I have a good kid. Yeah. And my kid was so afraid for this teacher. He didn't want to tell me what happened. His friends told me what happened, which made me even more upset at her, that my kid wanted to protect her.
They don't.
And
Well,
then
the
I told
kids
her,
don't
don't
want to
talk
be
to my
embarrassed.
kid. And then she turned around and talked to my kid about the situation. So I made sure that she was afraid.
Okay.
Now, do I advocate for that? Absolutely not. Parents, don't do it. That is wrong. That is wrong. But I tried other means to make this lady understand that I meant what I said. And even my kid told her, ma'am, don't make my mother have to come up here.
Yes. Yes, that's all we're saying. I mean, we can be cool, but don't be letting me send my kid to no private school, which means I'm paying for their education for you to come and abuse them. Like, absolutely not.
And they shouldn't get abused when you're not paying.
That too, but especially when I'm paying, I'm gonna need you to.
When I'm paying. And it was the religion teacher.
Oh Lord, see,
well, I like that.
See, we almost got slapped with a cease and desist from the religious institution when they came up with some foolishness. But anyway, we're gonna be good today, Melissa.
Make it better. I don't even remember my question, because in the best way possible, you remind me of my mom, because that's how hard my mom was for
in
me.
The chat. Your mom is in the
chat right now too. You remind me so much of my mom and how hard she used to go for me when I was in public school. The reason why I was homeschooled for the majority of my schooling, because teachers did not know how to act, and I told them, please don't make my mom come up here, because it's going to be an issue. And she came up there and she took me out of the school. Yeah. So, but something you brought up earlier was talking about addressing trauma and how that affects students in the classroom. And I think that tying into that, mental health ties into that a lot. And so how could you explain, or do you have a vision for kind of embedding mental health support into schools and like into the school day, instead of treating them like extracurricular things or things that they should just do at home? Because school is where school is where you spend a majority of your time. Right. And so a lot of that shaping has to be done in school as well, especially if that behavior is affecting the student and the teacher. So how do you have a vision for that?
Oh, most definitely. There are a number of schools that during their school day, they have, I guess you could call them group sessions where students come together and just talk. And I remember as a teacher, one of my good friends, she's passed away now, but she taught special ed. And every day after school, I used to wonder why all of my kids would hurry up and my students would hurry up and get their work done and want to go over to her classroom. Well, they had this little session called group. And what was discussed in group stayed in group. Mm-hmm. And so we would go, I started hanging out, and I realized I was missing out on all the tea. But what she was doing was allowing the students to vent and talk to her about what was going on in the school day with a teacher or whenever. And she would give them the tools to help address it. She would even call parents or what have you. And so group just became a thing. It was a safe space, right? And having more group opportunities, but also actually having some people that can address mental health. You know, when we think about mental health, especially mental health with children, we think about kids that have serious emotional disturbances. I'm talking about students, children that are dealing with trauma. You know, they've lost a parent or a sibling, or I don't know, their parents are in the military and deployed for months and years at a time. And just anything that makes them feel bad. They had an argument with their best friend, and now their best friend isn't talking to them. Because our little kids are harming themselves in really devastating numbers. Yeah. And the way to deal with that is to help them. So for instance, a thing that is the bane of my existence. When a child on the playground is playing with another child and that child does something to them and they go to the teacher and they say, Miss or Mr. So-and-so did such and such. And the first thing out of the teacher's mouth is don't tattle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Stop tattling. And you have to understand as an adult, the difference between a child tattling on a one-time offense and you being told on a daily basis that something is happening and you not stepping forward.
Yeah.
Because that could make the difference between a child living and not. Knowing that someone will take care of them. So offering opportunities for them to talk, but also training people to see how bullying is occurring and impacting them and the other influence of their lives. You know, kids are dealing with things that when I was a kid, we didn't deal with. And I was a kid a really long time ago. And so it's just incumbent upon me as someone that wants to be the overseer of K-12 education to really address it head on, call it what it is.
Mr. Fox.
Yeah. I was looking at a lot. We have a plethora of information about you. But before we move forward, before I ask my question, I wanted to make sure for the listeners that they understand some of the things that are being said about you. Often some of these other newspapers, some other people are saying about you. Her campaign says you need someone who understands what teachers need in the classroom and how to support students. Los Angeles Sentinel. She is pitching the superintendent role not as a political stepping stone, but as a job needing educational expertise. The Los Angeles Sentinel. The role she's running for is powerful in terms of agenda setting, but in California, the superintendent has limited direct authority. Local control is very strong. Cal matters. She seeks to center voices of undeserving students and communities and bring intentional equity rather than just rhetoric. Los Angeles Sentinel. But this is what I wanted to ask you. I was listening to the story you were saying as a mother, and what that teacher did and what you wanted to do. But
still do.
You're right. That to me, when I hear stories like that, those are perfect teaching moments about what it is that actual parents go through. I always hear people about teaching. We want to teach about our culture, but what we don't teach is the empathy that it takes to have empathy for our culture as well. Take empathy when you listen to our children, and empathy for some of the parents that come through, which you going through that yourself, being upset, you know that, hey, sometimes there is a system that's set in play that's not set for this person.
Right.
By you coming through that system as a teacher and as a parent, what do you think that you're willing? I don't want to say willing because you're already there. There's like in between these unions and these parents, there's a communication cutoff that stops, and it's a lot of it has to do with ego, and a lot of it has to do with policies. People say, okay, well, we're going to accept this policy, and I hear a lot of people say, what policy are you willing to implement? What policy are we going to start following through with the implementation on? Somebody say, I'm going to implement it. Okay, you handed it off to somebody else to do it. But that also takes me showing up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, making sure you're doing the job. Let me make this phone call. JJ's having a problem. Let me make a call, even though it's 7 o'clock and I'm off work. Who's gonna be the one following through with these policies? Because as we've all admitted, it's not the policies that are the problem. It's the people that are working the policies.
Right. It's the implementation
AI and all
that matters. Yeah. Oh, most definitely. So our kids are falling through these educational cracks because they're being pushed down into them. The cracks aren't that big. They're being pushed. When we start separating parents and their ability to engage from the idea of supporting parents and making sure that their students are successful, we're never going to see success in our students because there is a disconnect. There are policies in place. People ask me all the time, what policy will you implement? There are policies in place that protect parents. The challenge that you find is that when you have a school district or a school that doesn't really want parents or certain parents to be engaged, they use those policies to prevent it, right? So for instance, every school has a school site council or some derivative of it, or a parent-teacher association. If you know in your district that most of your parents don't speak English, and you have this meeting and you don't have a translator, what's the likelihood people are going to attend? And when they do attend, that they're going to speak up?
Right.
If you have these meetings at 10 o'clock in the morning and the majority of your parents work jobs that they can't afford to take time off, how do you have parent engagement? How do the parents know what's going on? By law, parents are able to ask if there is a meeting at 10 o'clock, they can ask for an evening meeting, a meeting that happens after school to accommodate working parents. Parents don't know, and I believe it's in most states, they get at least 1 hour that if they show, they need to go up to their child's school where their pay can't be docked. It's educating parents on how to advocate for themselves and for their kids. It's making parents feel welcomed at a school. It's making sure that the community is engaged and involved in the school. That is what's most important. We can talk about how we can empower kids all day long, but if their parents don't feel that they have a voice, the child's voice is silenced. And so it's so important just to educate, and I mean educate, make parents aware of when activities are happening at the school. Don't send a stupid flyer home expecting for the parent to look in the kid's bottom of the backpack. But those are the things that you do when you don't really want participation.
Yeah.
And I know that parents want to be involved, because when I was a teacher, my kid's teacher told my kid, "Oh, your mom doesn't care about your education. She's not here for parent teacher night." Well, I had parent teacher night at work. So I sent my mother, and she's talking to my mother, telling my kid the next day how his mother doesn't care about him.
That's crazy. But that's what they do.
That's what they do. And so it's training, but it's trying to train teachers to do better, but it's training parents to understand how to maneuver through the system to get what they need for their kid and for themselves.
Facts. And just a shameless plug, we host a parent support network, Black Parent Support Network, here every Monday and Wednesday, 5:30 to 7. So if you want to get in the know, we are currently working with our parents to organize and do just that. So Mr. Chastain.
Yeah. So you were speaking on the training for teachers and parents, right? So what would a program look like to deal with some of those stressors that are in the class with the kids and their behavior, the teachers not really wanting to, and the parents not knowing how? What would be something that you would envision, something that you would vision to put together for those three units: teachers, parents, and students, for their emotional burnout, as well as just dealing with daily stresses in life?
Well, no program needs to be implemented. Reduce class size, give teachers the opportunity to teach the curriculum in the time allotted, or adjust the time allotted for them to teach. Take the bureaucracy out of their workday, first and second of all. Allow teachers to get to know their students. Because when you are allowed to look at your student as student A, student B, student 1, student 2 versus Bobby, Michael, and Sarah, you treat them differently. You interact with their parents differently.
Truly.
When you look at Bobby's mom as Mrs. Jones versus Shaniqua that came up to the school last week, wanting to put hands on you, you're going to treat her differently. And so it's not about training literally. It's just talking to people and making sure that they are aware. You learn things you learn how to be a teacher in a teacher training program, but what you don't learn in a teacher training program is how to interact with parents. And so it's making sure that teachers see the value of their parents and their students and understand how to engage them in a positive way. Use parents to your benefit. I had a parent one time told me when their kid acted up, because I would always call and say something really great and then tell them what the problem was. And the parent said, put Bobby on the phone. I put Bobby on the phone. She said, I done told Miss Henderson she can whoop yo's. The teacher told the student on the phone. Yeah. And I said, okay, Bobby, you heard your mama. I got nothing but space and opportunity. I never had a problem from Bobby again because he was afraid. Right. And so it's allowing teachers to build relationships. It's allowing parents to understand that they can advocate for their kids. They can be engaged, but educating them on how to come up to the school and inquire. But it's also incumbent upon the school to make parents aware of what's going on in school. Activities, opportunities for them to engage, or so that they know if that opportunity isn't available, that they know how to create it.
Right. And I just want to say, before anybody starts to take that little soundbite and say, oh, Miss Nichelle was going to whoop somebody's kid. And listen, this is a culturally community proficient conversation. If you are unfamiliar with our vernacular and how we respond to our children, when we say that they're our kids, they are our children. And we are going to discipline them like we would discipline our own children. That does not mean that we walk around beating people's kids, but that means we'll tell your kid we'll go head up with them if we need to. And so that is not
for the record, I never had to put hands on any kid.
And Bobby still listens. See, boom, Black Girl Magic. Mr. James.
Yes. So quickly, last week we had a guest. Her name was Carly, and she was she's an author for she's an author. She makes books for Black kids, Black youth. She also mentions, like, I want kids to see their story. I want my story, and I also want students to relate to it, because a lot of times in schools there's not books that relate to Black kids, and books, it's usually white, predominantly white. And I want to ask you this question: like, what is when we talk about equity, we talk about diversity, what's your stance on protecting cultural relevant curriculum, books, ethnic studies from other possible political attacks?
Oh, I'm all in. Culturally relevant curriculum is really important, especially in this time in our country, dealing with what we're dealing with in Washington, D.C. And it's important that in order to teach someone, they have to trust you. In order to trust you, they have to believe that you care. In order to care, you have to know them. How do you know them? You learn about their culture. I think one of the challenges that we have and just in society in general, we assume that every child understands where they come from, how we came to be where we are right now. So every February we have to hear about slavery. You hear about Martin Luther King, but you don't hear about anybody else that led a movement. You don't hear about Malcolm X. Nope. Malcolm X was always ready to throw some hands. He was in it. And some of the other folks that really use their voice to make a difference. Yeah. It's so important that be the thing. Yeah. That be the thing. Culturally relevant curriculum. What does it mean? What does it look like in our classrooms? It's something as simple as now with our standardized testing, we have groups that come together and they bring teachers into a space and they talk about the questions on standardized tests to determine whether or not that question is biased to any particular group of students. So for instance, at one point when they started standardized testing a few decades back, one of the questions was, if Bobby has a gun and Sally's got 2 bullets and Bobby's got 3. What? What? What?
The hell?
Right? Yeah. Or if Bobby's got 2 watermelons and Sally's got 3. What?
Yeah.
So questions like that people will pass off as harmless, wouldn't pass mustard right now. So it's being really intentional about what the curriculum looks like, but also making sure that whatever you're teaching is presented in an unbiased manner, giving kids an opportunity to really learn and have some pride. And that's how you acquire that self-efficacy, because you feel a pride within yourself. Your culture isn't constantly being demeaned.
Just on a side note, because when you're bringing that up, I just wanted to know, did you hear about the dodo birds here in Elk Grove that did the Knickerbucks lesson?
I did not.
Oh, I'm gonna have to send that to you.
Please do.
Because I mean, again, we're talking about culturally relevant curriculum. They did this assignment with Knickerbucks, and they had not a welfare dollar on it. They had redeemable for big booty hoes.
Big booty hoes. 40 ounce of alcohol.
And there was one more. There was some chicken, about a bucket of chicken on this thing, and this was given out as a way to teach kids not to say the N-word allegedly. And I'm just interested to see what they're going to come up with on this fabulous Black History Month programming this year. But I wanted to ask you, because with the California State Superintendent role having less direct power than people assume, can you kind of give us a scope of what falls under your umbrella of regarding things that you do have the power to implement and you don't? Like, you're not gonna come in on a white horse and change everything for everybody, because Tony Thurman ain't been able to do much since he's been there. So what can you do in that role so that people understand it better?
Great question. I will not be riding in on my purple unicorn as the great Black savior. The superintendent of public instruction has limited power, because the governor of our state sets policy. The superintendent can recommend policy, but overall, the superintendent of public instruction implements and oversees the policy that's set.
Okay.
So the superintendent should have some background in education, some understanding of what's happening in our classrooms and in our schools, because that's where the implementation happens.
Okay.
And so one of the things that the superintendent does is standardized testing. Work with the Department of Education. So the superintendent of public instruction leads the California Department of Education. The superintendent also sits on a number of education-related boards and commission across the state and federally. So the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, the UC Board of Regents, the CSU Board of Trustees. So when college students are concerned about tuition, there's a voice in the space talking about how we might need to consider reducing tuition, talking about housing, things like that for higher ed. But the superintendent has a voice. It's a bully pulpit. Okay. So although the superintendent cannot go into a school district or even a county office of education and say something along the lines of, you need to do this, they can refer to policy that they need to follow. So it'd be incumbent upon the superintendent to know that, to understand ed code, to understand that policy, but also having a background in education, making sure that the policy, the language in policy and legislation is intentional, so that dollars attached, that the dollars attached see the light of day at a school district. When we're talking about funding allocations and all that. So for instance, a couple of folks that are in this race that were and are in the state legislature talk about bills that they've supported that have provided hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars to different school districts. But they can't tell you how that money was actually used.
Right.
So it's great that you made sure you voted for this bill that got this money, but because the language in the bill wasn't intentional or specific enough to make sure that as the allocations were made, it was utilized the way it was intended, we have what we have. So it's understanding what the need is and understanding within my role how I navigate that.
Mr. Fox?
Yeah, I have a slightly different question, but
Yes.
I'm unsure how much your parent is. I'm gonna ask, but this is again. I understand you got to be political correct when you say this, and my question got to do with people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
When we are seeing things like what Miss Lorene be talking about it, and she goes big off numbers and ed codes and statistics. When we see things like kids who they've made it all the way to 11th grade, and the reason why I said it is because you said standardized testing. They've made it all the way to 10th grade, and we find out he can't read, and we find out she doesn't know math, and this person doesn't know history. How do we get rid of bad teachers despite a union? And since my time in this work field, nowhere close to where yours is at. I ain't even gonna speak on your 30, right? But I come from a place where my auntie mom was a school teacher, other people's was schools, and I'm somebody who was skipped up through the system. I come from the prison to school pipeline, meaning the last grade I completed in school was the 4th grade, but I went to prison at 14. But from 4th grade on up, I was getting skipped up because I was a bad kid and nobody wanted to deal with me.
You were difficult.
I was
kid.
difficult.
Okay,
Yeah,
not
still,
bad.
But still, they said
bad.
You were a challenge.
they said I was counseled and all these things that didn't happen. But
Right.
the system was a system that always told our people, "Hey, give them ass. We can deal with them." Yeah, cuffs. So my point being this: how do we get rid of, as we implementing these new systems? We have an old regime that's still here, and this old regime has taught their kids they don't get it in the workforce. They get it right at home. Hey, look, this is how we do it. This is this. So they come into the workforce with your new system, with the home teachings of an old regime, and we can't get. And it's looking to me from the outside looking in that it's starting to be harder to get rid of these bad teachers despite the union, because the teachers that they are getting rid of, that we hear, oh, he's fired. Oh, they did the right thing. Yeah, nobody liked him. That's why it was easy. Because nobody liked the guy.
But if it's their friend, they get to stay forever.
And they'd be like, well, you know that Jimmy, he got his dreads on in his face. You got it. He had it coming. They want to blame the kid. How are we to say, even though we're admitting, yeah, the system works and we're implementing these things, and this is a long-winded question, but I'm hoping you catch it in there because you come from it, and I mean that in a good way. How are we to change it when they didn't taught this to their kids before they even came in the workforce to do what they do in the workforce?
Because we have a system of social promotion where students matriculate from grade to grade to grade to grade to grade, but yet, and I talk about this all the time, every year we have standardized testing. These standardized tests are assessments. When you assess, you are assessing to determine mastery of a skill, mastery of something. You are demonstrating your understanding.
Correct.
We get the results of these tests, but Bobby and Sarah still move on to the next grade when we know that they're not functioning. Here's the other challenge. In addition to the system of social promotion, the standardized testing, the way we do it, the way we implement it, is designed for students to fail. Example, school starts late August, early September. You get a few days out for Thanksgiving. You get a week or so out for between Thanksgiving and New Year's. You come back, you've got spring break. You come back from spring break and they're ready to start standardized testing in April or May. When I talk about utilizing instructional time so that teachers are able to teach, you're testing kids on the content for that grade level that the teacher wasn't able to fully teach it all. So how do you expect any of the students to really perform well, especially when they've come into that grade level, several grade levels below academically?
Yeah.
And the reason why that is significant is because we're saying in our schools that we're data driven. We're getting data from these assessments, yet we're not using it. We're using it to bash teachers. We're using it to bash the schools and beg for money. But what are we doing in our schools to fix this? Why are we assessing sixth grade students on sixth grade standards when the teacher didn't have the entire sixth grade to teach it? Why don't we assess in the grade prior, which gives each teacher ample opportunity to cover all of the content? Again, when we center student success and positive outcomes, and we look at intention and we think about the school to prison pipeline, how does this benefit students?
Yeah.
When we really look at our standardized testing, it doesn't. That is why we have students that are getting to the 10th grade that can't read. Nobody's paying attention to it. Nobody's held responsible for it. And I'm not saying fire teachers because Bobby can't read. I'm saying train the teacher so that she can ensure that Bobby can at least read and comprehend well enough to get to the next grade so that the next teacher can further support Bobby to try and get Bobby caught up, but not let him continue to matriculate from grade to grade. And we know that he's going to go in prison or dead because he doesn't have any other way to support himself.
So listen, we are running out of time, which means it is round robin, quick questions, and we're going to start with Miss Melissa. We're going to give the fellow across from me a chance because Mr. Fox had his chance with his.
I'm good. I told you I'm from 21 Jump Street. I'm a supporter. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm trying to let them hear you speak out here.
Yeah. So Miss Melissa, your question.
My question is kind of on the same topic of tests. How can we make school feel more like it's preparation for life rather than just preparation to take a test?
That is such a good question.
Beautiful.
Offer workforce opportunities. My younger brothers, who I'm going to almost tell my age. I have a younger brother that is turning 46 in December, 46. And the other one is 48. And there is a lot of years between us. And when they were in high school, there was home economics still. You learn how to cook and bake and clean, sew a button on a shirt. And he had a woodshop class.
Yep.
And in our house, we have a table that my brother made when he was in workshop class, when he was like 16 or 17 years old. Accept as a reality that college is not the pathway that every student wants to trail down. And giving them opportunities starting in middle school to really start to explore and know what is available. They may not be thinking about college when they're 13, but if you can encourage them to, by letting them experience something different, they may say, I want to go to college because I want to study that. Or they just can't. They've got a kid, they've got to work, or they're taking care of their younger siblings or whatever the case. But making sure that we don't wait until they graduate high school or get into trouble before we offer opportunities for them to better themselves and be on a pathway that really means success in the way that they envision it for themselves.
Gotcha. Mr. Chastain.
Yes. So we're gonna flip it a little bit. So the Black versus Board of Education podcast gives young people the mic. How would you ensure that young voices, especially from marginalized communities, are represented in the state level decision making?
Oh, I love it. So right now, the superintendent had I'm not sure. I don't remember if it's a committee or a commission, but it was a student.
I think it was an advisory committee.
Yes, an advisory. And apparently it's been kind of done away with, but when it was active, students didn't really feel as though their voices were being heard. They felt that they were meeting and that was it. Really using platforms such as that to get more students involved so that when those students that meet with the superintendent are able to speak, they're speaking on the issues that are concerning all of the students that, they would represent across the state, but empowering students through school and district similar programs that kind of create that pipeline and that voice towards that committee.
I love it. James, last question.
Last question. So, if you had a student that was, how you say this, that was sitting in a chair next to you, what advice would you give them about using power responsibly or advocating for their voice in order to create change?
I think it would depend on a couple of things, what I would say to them and how I would say it, depending upon how they were coming to me. If they were a student that is labeled bad, a naughty kid, always in trouble, and they're feeling frustrated, I would speak to them and let them know that the way that I would help them to see their value is by finding out something about them. What makes them tick? How did they come to sit next to me? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm a hugger. I live by the adage that I want people to always feel better about themselves and their situation after having been around me.
Yeah.
And so it really would depend on where that child is at or that student is at in that moment. But it would be the conversation or my words to them would be focused on where they are and what they need in that moment and where they want to be.
Gotcha.
And how I can direct them there.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now I have one last question. This one is not as serious, but if you had a time
I already
machine.
said I'm a Scorpio. What more do you need to know?
I feel it. If you had a time machine and you could go back to the first classroom you taught in, what would you say to yourself? And what would you say to those students in that room, knowing what you know now as an experienced educator and leader?
Well, my first classroom was my first classroom. I taught 6th grade. Oh, wow. I think I would go back and pat myself on the back and commend myself for being a great teacher and making my students feel loved and wanted and appreciated. I've been invited to baby showers, weddings, you name it. These kids are now in their early 30s. I brag on this guy all the time. One of my Stormer students, he wasn't a student in my class, but a student of mine. His name is Denzel Perry. He sits on the Compton School Board. Denzel is one of my former students. I've known Denzel since he was 11 years old. I take great pride in the conversations that I've had with young people that are now adults, because when I look at them, I see who they're going to be, and I want them to see that also.
Well, fun fact, Denzel is actually a board member here at Black Youth Leadership Project.
I didn't know. I love him so
like
much.
My baby brother. So shout out to Denzel. I have to tell him that you gave him a shout out today. That is so amazing.
Every opportunity I get, I give him a shout. I'm so proud of him.
I love it. Well, look, we have run out of time. We absolutely thank you for being gracious with your time and joining us. If you all have had a chance to sit and learn more about Miss Nichelle Henderson, then we know your vote will be cast November 2026.
June 1st and then
June 1st and then November. Okay, so y'all got 2 chances to put her in the running to become our next superintendent of public instruction. And I hope you will do your job. Because we're not trying to put no career politicians in the role who don't know what the heck is going on. We want to put somebody in there who has some experience and can really have those conversations that need to be had. So with that, we're going to bid y'all adieu. We're going to hit you with the peace sign. We'll check y'all out next time. We are Black versus the Board of Education. Peace out.
Peace.